Welcome to the Rose at Home channel. I am Rose and I am at home and I am so glad to see you today. What I thought we would talk about is that this is AAPI month, which is Asian American and Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. And so I thought I would share a few things that I've read that fit or tangentially fit, because not everyone who is from an Asian culture or a descendant of people from Asian cultures moved to America. There are other countries on the globe, and because some people haven't immigrated at all but still write amazing books, and I'm excited to share them with you. So I'm gonna just go with that one because this intro's been really hard. Before I start, 2 seconds to say, if you hear Liam screaming, I've not done anything bad to him. He is in his room. I believe I hope that's what he's doing. He's DMing an online D&D game, and he gets really into it, and he gets very, very loud. And so I've had to redo this intro a bunch of times. I'm done redoing it. I'm just gonna leave it. So that's what it is. If you hear him, I told him that I would show you his super messy room if he interrupted again, and none of us want that, I promise. So hopefully it's gonna be okay and we will get through. So I divided this up into 2 stacks. One is a stack of books that I have already read in the past that I wanted to recommend as something that you might want to pick up either this month or at any point. And the other is a stack of books that I might be able to get to this month, and we'll go through those. The first book that I want to talk about is not from an Asian American or a Pacific Islander. It is from a woman who is Vietnamese and still lives there today. It is When Phan Quay Mai's The Mountains Sing. This was one of my absolute most favorite books of 2022. This has stuck with me. I've really thought about the family here. It has shaped my thinking. I teach a book called The Things They Carried, which follows American GIs during the Vietnam War. So having this as a counter, hey, this is what the people that almost never even get mentioned in that book, this is what it's like from their side in their country that we went to try to fight help the South fight the North and all of that. And so it's really interesting. I'm gonna read you the synopsis because it's going to do a better job than me. Set against the backdrop of the Vietnam War, The Mountains Sing tells an intimate, enveloping story of 4 generations of the Tran family as seen through the eyes of the matriarch, Tran Du Lan, and her granddaughter, Kuang. Du Lan is forced by the communists to flee her family's prosperous farm during the land reformation in 1955. With 5 of her 6 children, she embarks on a perilous journey to keep them safe, and is forced to make unthinkable choices along the way. Years later, in Hanoi, she survives the American bombardment with young Huang, whose parents and uncle have left to fight in the conflict that continues to tear both her family and her beloved country apart. As Huang comes of age, awaiting word of her mother and father, Du Lan gradually reveals the secrets of her past, teaching her granddaughter indelible lessons about not only what it takes to survive, but what it means to live with courage, grace, and compassion. It was so good, y'all. I really, really, really love this, and I can't recommend it any more highly. As soon as you get the chance, pick this up, read this. It is so good. The next book I'm going to recommend is The Leavers by Lisa Ko. This is one that has really stuck with me. I think I read it last year or the year before, but it's definitely one of my top reads, and one where I wonder about the characters in the future. Every once in a while, the characters will just kind of come into my head. It was a really great, heartbreaking story. It's a lot of coming of age. Here, let me give you the back. One morning, Deming Gao's mother, Polly, an undocumented Chinese immigrant, goes to her job at a nail salon and never comes home. No one can find any trace of her. With his mother gone, 11-year-old Deming is left mystified and bereft. Eventually, he is adopted by a well-meaning white couple who move him from the Bronx to a small town upstate and rename him Daniel Wilkinson. Far from all he has ever known, Daniel struggles to reconcile his new life with his memories of his mother and the community he left behind. Told from the perspectives of both Daniel and Polly, Coe's novel gives us one of fiction's most singular mothers, loving and selfish, determined and frightened. Polly is forced to make one heart-wrenching choice after another. Set in New York and China, The Leavers is a vivid examination of borders and belonging. It's a moving story of how a boy comes into his own when everything he loves is taken away, and how a mother learns to live with the mistakes of the past. It's really strong, it's really powerful. It really is heartbreaking and heart-wrenching and beautiful and memorable, and I can't recommend it. Again, recommending it super highly. Really great book. The next is one that I talked about briefly because I got it last month and I read it last month, and it is the book that I got through Book of the Month. It is Advika and the Hollywood Wives by Kirthana Ramisetti. I hope I'm saying that right. It was such a good book. At age 26, Advika Srinivasan considers herself a failed screenwriter. To pay the bills and keep her mind off of the recent death of her twin sister, she's taken to bartending A-list events, including the 2015 Governor's Ball, the official after-party of the Oscars. There, in a cinematic dream come true, she meets the legendary Julian Zelding, a film producer as handsome as Paul Newman and 10 times as powerful, fresh off his 5th Best Picture win. Despite their 41-year age difference, Advika falls helplessly under his spell, and their evening flirtation ignites into a whirlwind courtship and elopement. Advika is enthralled by Julian's charm and luxurious lifestyle, but while Julian loves to talk about his famous friends and achievements, he smoothly changes the subject whenever his previous relationships come up. Then, less than a month into their marriage, Julian's first wife, the famous actress Evie Lockhart, dies and makes a shocking stipulation in her will. A single film reel and $1 million will be bequeathed to Julian's latest child bride. And on one condition, Advika must divorce him first. Shaken out of her love fog and still simmering grief over the loss of her sister, and uneasy about Julian's sudden inexplicable urge to start a family, Advika decides to investigate him through the eyes and experiences of his exes. From reading his first wife's biography, to listening to his second wife's confessional albums, to watching his third wife's Real Housewives-esque reality show, Advika starts to understand how little she knows about her husband. Realizing that she rushed into the marriage for all the wrong reasons, Advika concocts a plan to extract herself from Julian once and for all. I guess that is a pretty good job of summing it up. It is not a love story. It's a grief story. It's a survivor story. Her sister died in a horrible accident, and even though they had a very close family, her parents went back to either India or Pakistan, I'm not for sure, but so they left the country. So one daughter died and they left the other one, and so she is left here completely alone. She has ghosted she has a very close group of friends, she's ghosted all of them. And so she is in a very vulnerable place when this much older man shows up and starts basically love bombing her and giving her so much attention. It's really, it was fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed her. I enjoyed it for what it was, but it wasn't a romance, and it wasn't a rom-com, and it wasn't a fun kind of chick lit thing. It really did focus a lot on grief and toxic relationships. That's what this is, and I really enjoyed it, and so I totally recommend it. This is A Thousand Splendid Suns by Khaled Hosseini, and I have probably read this 3 or 4 dozen times given how many years I've been teaching it, and so I'm not going to read you the synopsis. I'm just going to tell you it follows a woman from the time of her, it starts when she's 5. She grows up with a single mother because her father, who had 3 wives, also got himself in a relationship with the family maid, got her in the family way, and so he put her and the impending baby, who ends up being Miriam, in a shack in the middle of kind of nowhere, and they they stay there alone until Miriam gets to be 14, and then stuff happens. We also then jump into the life of a young woman named, it's either Layla or Lila. I read it as Layla, but I've had a student spelled the same way where it's Lila, so it could be either way. So I'm going to say Layla just because that's how I say it. Anyway, Layla, whose parents are also not in the best place, but they are together. Her mother is suffering from severe clinical depression without any assistance. Her two sons have gone off to war and she hasn't heard from them in years, and she just like can't get out of bed so many days. And so Layla and her dad are trying to get through as best they can. And it follows the timeline when Miriam is little. It is at the time of the monarchy in Afghanistan. It goes through the end of the monarchy, into the Soviet invasion, through the end of the Soviets when the Soviets leave and the Mujahideen comes in, and then there's this huge civil war between all of the different factions until the Taliban comes in to save the day, and then all of the stuff that happens with them and the way these women are treated under their leadership. And it ends just after 9/11, which is something that we Americans knew. So it's a huge time span. There's a lot of history that happens then. I learned so much, especially teaching it, because I pull news articles and different things so that my students have context, because other than sound bites, they don't get a lot of the background stuff. It is absolutely beautiful. I will give you the warning I give my kids. Every time until the end, when you're reading this and you're thinking, okay, thank God, it's about to change, things are about to get better, is about to get a whole lot worse. And then you're like, okay, we figured this out. We're there. It's about to get better. No, no, not until you get into right near the end. It does end with hope. It does end with it. I cry. Like I said, I've read this a few dozen times. I still tear up at the last line every single time. If I opened it now, I would probably cry at the last line, so I'm not doing it. It's beautiful. I can't suggest more strongly that everybody should read this. Everybody should read this. Everybody should read this. So the last book that I've read and that I want to talk about is R.F. Kuang's The Poppy War. Now, this one is also it's my transition piece. It is also going onto my TBR. And that is because I read it when it first came out. This is the hardcover. I got it on release. I read it on release, but even though I bought the next two also on release, I've got those in the white hardcover. I haven't read those yet, and it's been so long that I know I'm not going to remember all of the things I'm going to need to remember to adequately understand everything that's happening throughout the trilogy, so I really need to start over. So, because I don't remember, I'm going to read from the jacket. She is a peasant. She is a student. She is a soldier. She is a goddess. When Rin aced the Kenju, the empire-wide test to find the most talented youth to study at the academies, it was a shock to everyone. To the test officials who couldn't believe a war orphan from Rooster Province could pass without cheating, to Rin's guardians, who always thought they'd be able to marry Rin off to further their criminal enterprise. And to Rin herself, who realized she was now finally free of the servitude and despair that had made up her daily existence. Then she got into Sign Guard. The most elite military school in the Naikara Empire was even more surprising. But surprises aren't always good. Being a dark-skinned peasant girl Ooh, I just kicked you. Being a dark-skinned peasant girl from the south is not an easy thing in Sign Guard. Rin is targeted from the outset by rival classmates because of her color, poverty, and gender. Driven to desperation, she discovers she possesses a lethal, unearthly power, an aptitude for the nearly mythical art of shamanism. Exploring the depths of her gifts with the help of a seemingly insane teacher and psychoactive substances, Rin learns that gods long thought dead are very much alive, and that mastering control over her powers could mean more than just surviving school. For even though the Naikara Empire is at peace, the Federation of Mujin still lurks across a narrow sea. The militarily advanced Federation occupies the Naikara Empire for decades after the First Poppy War, and only barely lost the continent in the Second. And while most of the people in the Empire would rather forget their painful history, a few are aware that a third Poppy War is just a spark away. Rin's shamanic powers may be the only way to save her people, but as she finds out more about the god who has chosen her, the vengeful phoenix, she fears that winning the war may cost her her humanity, and that it may already be too late. Yeah, it was. I remember it being really good, but I don't remember enough details to feel comfortable moving forward. So this is on the list to reread it. If I don't get to it this month, it's something maybe I'll do over the summer and then be able to go on to the other two. Okay, so now on to a few things that I would like to have on my May TBR. May is a really rough, specifically this year, it's a really rough month for me. I teach seniors. So normally it's a pretty easy, we're wrapping things up at this point, but this year in February, I was asked to jump in kind of last minute and become a senior sponsor and help put together graduation and convocation, which is our senior awards ceremony. And it's been really, really stressful. And so I don't have nearly the time or the mental capacity to read that I normally do in May. So I'm not sure how much I want to get through in May, but these are some that I might read and that you might be interested in. The first one is Salman Rushdie's Quicotte, I think is how you pronounce that. This is a more modern day retelling of Don Quixote, the Man of La Mancha, if you're familiar with the musical. And it is basically inspired by the Cervantes classic. Sam Duchamp, mediocre writer of spy thrillers, creates Quicotte, a courtly adult salesman obsessed with television who falls in impossible love with a TV star. Together with his imaginary son, Sancho, Quicotte settles off to a picaresque quest across America to prove worthy of her hand, gallantly braving the tragicomic perils of an age where anything can happen. Meanwhile, his creator, in a midlife crisis, has equally urgent challenges of his own. Just as Cervantes wrote Don Quixote to satirize the culture of his time, Rushdie takes the reader on a wild ride through a country on the verge of moral and spiritual collapse. So, I'll be honest, I have 4 Salman Rushdie books on my shelf and I haven't read any because I'm really intimidated, and I shouldn't be. I should just jump in, and of the 4, this one sounds the most interesting. I love that there's the book within a book kind of aspect to it. I am familiar with the story of Don Quixote, so that should definitely help. So I do want to get to this. This is me saying out loud, I really want to get to this. I really want to successfully get through some, and then I can read the others knowing it's not impossible highbrow stuff, that it's totally readable by me. So here's hoping for this one. The next is a book that just seems weird and odd, and I'm not gonna say it was a cover buy, but it was an impulse buy, and I'm still super intrigued though, and it is Ruth Ozeki, The Book of Form and Emptiness. I'm just gonna read the flap and y'all tell me if I'm just being silly. 1 year after the death of his beloved musician father, 13-year-old Benny O begins to hear voices. The voices belong to the things in his house: a sneaker, a broken Christmas ornament, a piece of wilted lettuce. Although Benny doesn't understand that these things are saying, he can sense their emotional tone. Some are pleasant, a gentle hum or coo, but others are snide, angry, and full of pain. When his mother Annabelle develops a hoarding problem, the voices grow more clamorous. At first, Benny tries to ignore them, but soon the voices follow him outside the house, onto the street, and at school, driving him at least to seek refuge in the silence of a large public library where objects are well behaved and know to speak in whispers. There, Benny discovers a strange new world. He falls in love with a mesmerizing street artist and a smug pet ferret who uses the library as her performance space. He meets a homeless philosopher poet who encourages him to ask important questions and find his own voice among the many. And he meets his very own book, a talking thing, which narrates Benny's life and teaches him to listen to the things that truly matter. Okay, how do you not pick that up? That just sounds amazing and awesome and meta in an interesting, like, he's got a book that's narrating his own life to him, kind of a never-ending story-esque kind of thing. I don't know, it just sounded awesome, and how can it not be in my house and hopefully read by me pretty soon so I can tell you how it went. Okay, so the next book I was going to try to get to is, how gorgeous is that cover? If I Had Your Face by Frances Cha, and let's see, even as a girl, I knew the only chance I had was to change my face, even before a fortune teller told me so. Kayuri is an achingly beautiful woman with a hard-won job at a Seoul room salon, an exclusive underground bar where she entertains businessmen while they drink. Though she prides herself on her cold, clear-eyed approach to life, an impulsive mistake threatens her livelihood. Kiyuri's roommate, Miho, is a talented artist who grew up in an orphanage, but won a scholarship to study art in New York. Returning to Korea after college, she finds herself in a precarious relationship with the heir to one of the country's biggest conglomerates. Down the hall in their buildings lives Ara, a hairstylist with two preoccupations sustaining her, an obsession with a boy band pop star and a best friend who's saving up for the extreme plastic surgeries that she hopes will change her life. And Wona, one floor before, is a newlywed trying to have a baby, though she and her husband have no idea how they can afford to raise it in Korea's brutal economy. Together, their stories tell a gripping tale at once unfamiliar and unmistakably universal, in which their tentative friendships may turn out to be the thing that ultimately saves them. That just sounds so good. That sounds really good. I haven't read it, so I can't tell you like how many perspectives are in there or how they deal with them or any of that. Hopefully I will get to it and I will be able to tell you, and you might want to pick this up too. And the last thing that I wanted to talk about today, Everything Here is Beautiful by Mira T. Lee. And look at that cover. I am a sucker for pretty covers, in case you hadn't figured that out. When Lucia Bach starts hearing voices, older sister Miranda tries desperately to reach her. Lucia is vibrant, full of wonder, and impetuous. But when mental illness takes hold, it threatens to derail her life, as well as the lives of everyone she loves. Miranda will try to rescue her sister, but only Lucia can decide whether she wants to be saved. At its heart, Everything is Beautiful is a gut-wrenching story about a young woman's quest to find fulfillment. But it's also an unforgettable cross-cultural drama about immigrants, family, and the sacrifices we make to truly love someone, and when loyalty to oneself must prevail overall. So, yeah, it's not super long, so this, again, hopefully, we'll see. I'm not big on, I don't do punishments if I don't get to things. I'm not that person, but hopefully I can find the time to really read the things that I want to read and still get all of the work stuff that I have to do done. So here's where things are with this channel. This is something that I'm using as self-care. I love to talk about books, and I love to talk about books with people who will listen, and so that's you. And that makes me happy. I can't make any videos of things that stress me out because I have so much stress going on in my life, and my mental health is not at the best of places. Every day just forcing myself to get out of bed is a battle. It's a total knockdown, drag out kind of mental battle. And I'm not saying that to freak you out or you need to worry about me. I'll be fine. I got this. I will get through, but I can't add the stress of trying to film, learning how to do stuff on the house and all of that. I just can't. No one's paid me to do this. This has to be self-care for me, and it has to be something that I look forward to and can enjoy. Talking about the books right now is what is fun for me, and so that's what I'm doing. So I hope it's fun for you. I hope you enjoyed this. We are going to have a bookshelf tour really soon. I do have to figure that out, but I'm giving myself as much grace as I can. But hopefully I will see you again in a couple of days, and I hope you read wonderful books. Bye.